moving on to the Mavs in OKC. They are unwatchable. No, I'm just kidding. Shout out to our last Mavs video. But I mean, if we're gonna talk about unwatchable, the Dallas Mavericks looked outclassed at times, or most of the time
Hey, what about
during
the
the
guy that
game
was
one
mad?
loss.
The mad that we called Kyrie a nutcase. I called Kyrie a nutcase. Like that shit didn't disappear. You know what I mean? Like he still thinks the Earth is flat. Like he still promotes all this weird shit.
Yeah.
He's still, the sage and all this other. He's still a weirdo. Like he's a weirdo. Like
Oh,
the one thing I'll
pile
say
it
about
on.
Kyrie though is people love to play with him.
Oh
Like
yeah.
NBA players love Kyrie. That's
Yeah.
one thing that you can always say. That's the one thing. He may be a weirdo to the public, but players want to play with Kyrie.
Yep.
Except for maybe, I don't know how Celtics fans feel about him, but
No, fuck him. He doesn't
yeah,
exist.
that's what I figured.
So again, the Mavericks looked outclassed at times during their 117-95 game one loss at the Oklahoma City Thunder to start their Western Conference semifinal series. Luka, the NBA's leading scorer, has a sprained knee. Yes, he got it early game 3 of the Mavericks versus Clippers, and since then he's kind of had a shooting slump of sorts, and he's dipped below 40% from the floor from the postseason since that injury has happened. Now, along with this injury, he now has to deal with one of the top 3 defensive teams in the league and a smothering defense of Lou Dort, who's just constantly on him. Luka was held to 19 points, which is a rarity. 6 of 19 shooting, very inefficient, snapping his streak of 24 consecutive playoff games with at least 20 points. The Mavericks fell to 0-5 in game ones under Jason Kidd, dropping Doncic down to 22.7% from the arc during these playoffs, including 5 of 35 over the past 4 games, the worst percentage over a 4-game postseason stretch with at least 30 attempts in NBA history, and that is according to ESPN. Looking obviously past Luka as well, Dallas turned the ball over 6 times in the game's first 7.5 minutes. Lack of ball security was the primary reason for the Mavs offense to fail to really try to find rhythm, and kind of pile that onto a Kyrie Irving, who's that second option, sometimes the first option, depending on the night. He's kind of a slow goer at times. And then while you go ahead and nobody else can get anything going, while kind of like you're letting Kyrie's engine kind of rev a little bit and warm up in the cold winter, and then kind of let him go, it's too late once he starts, because there was a little bit of life there in the third quarter where he kind of took over a little bit, and a little bit in the first half. In the second quarter he was okay, but he kind of fell off in the second half a lot of the times too, past a little bit of shooting stretch in the middle of the third. I think he only shot 5 times. Let me double check my notes. But I believe he only shot 5 times over the entire second half of the game. And it definitely needs to be a lot more. Sorry, 4 times in the second half, which is kind of disturbing trend for the Mavs. Again, you have him kind of slow go in the first quarter, and then he's not great in the entire second half. He doesn't shoot the ball a lot while Luka is injured. He needs to take over a lot more than this. Looking at the Oklahoma City Thunder, led by the MVP candidate, Shai, SGA, 29 points, 9 rebounds, 9 assists performance.
Go back to our video from 2 months ago where we called him an MVP candidate.
Rolling onto their 5th straight win to open the playoffs. Drew, looking at this Thunder team, looking at the Mavs team, I believe this could be a lot better series, but what do the Mavericks really have to do to kind of turn this around?
Get Luka healthy. I mean, if you go back and put that game tape on after the first quarter, I would love someone to do like the stats on this. I don't even think Luka came into the paint from the 3-point line. Like the second, third, and fourth quarter, all he did was his step back jumpers. They weren't falling. And I'm not even giving this analysis as a crapping on Luka thing, because that's not what this is about. I just don't think he's physically healthy enough right now to get to the basket. I don't think he's physically healthy enough to play the way he needs to play for them to win. His step backs are deadly. His perimeter game is deadly, but it's because he can attack and get to the basket and all the things that you could do. If you took all the best NBA players in the world and took away their primary skill, they all of a sudden they're not the best at what they do anymore, and he's just clearly not healthy. I don't think that Kyrie can carry them at this stage in his career the way he would need to make up for it at this point. And frankly, um, even if they were all completely healthy, the Oklahoma City Thunder probably still win this series. So even if everything was okay, OKC's favored and probably wins this series. So you add in a Luka injury, and everybody. The funny thing about these Mavericks fans is they act like they forget that they missed the playoffs last year and they were the 5th seed this year. Like they act like they're some second coming of the greatest team ever. But
Yeah.
it's just there's holes in this team, and when you take your best player and you add a knee injury, I don't think they have enough to try to move past OKC at this point. Or I mean,
Yeah,
this series seems like a formality also.
and I know it's only one game, but OKC is only allowing 90.6 points per game in the playoffs, which is the fewest through 5 games by any team since the 2016 San Antonio Spurs. I mean, this is a defense led by young guys like Lou Dort and a rookie pretty much in Chet, who had 3 blocks and held the Mavericks at
Well, and
5 to
his knee's
15
not
shooting.
getting better either. That's the thing.
Right.
I know it's one game. Again, not a crap out on Luka, not even shitting on Mavs fans like I did on our last pod. It's just he's not healthy, and he's not going to get healthy. Here's the thing. Do you have the game logs in front of you?
I do not. But I can't get them up.
How many minutes did Luka play in game 1? I got him. He played 41 minutes. They pulled him at the 6-minute mark in the fourth quarter, or the 5-minute mark. He played 41 minutes. He didn't even play the last 5 minutes of the game. So you're talking about a dude who's on a hobbled knee. Shout out to him. He's a warrior. Not a warrior, you know what I mean? He's fighting through injury at this point, and
Right.
he's not healthy enough to play at the highest level that he needs to. And that's nothing on him. Injuries again happen, and it sucks. It's just he's not going to get healthy between game 1 and game 2. The minutes are going to continue to wear on him, and OKC is a really good team. He was going to have to play at a superstardom level, which we know he can, to even have a chance to win this series. And he's just, I don't think, healthy enough at this point to do it. And Kyrie's days of doing that, I think, are behind him.
And the length of it and athleticism of the OKC Thunder, with all the guys that you can think of, right, including Chet and Lou Dort and J-Dub and Jalen Williams, and Shea plays, okay defense as well. The length and athleticism is disrupting some of the Mavericks, like, pick and roll game that they like to run a lot of the times, contesting a lot of the lobs that Gafford and Lively end up having as dunks most of the time. But because of a guy like Chet being in the middle of the floor, you can't have that. Someone that long and athletic, it just disrupts everything in that paint. Again, the shots he contested, the Mavericks went 5 of 15, and he also scored another 19 points on top of that. Like, he's adding on both sides of the court as well. And you have to really wonder how detrimental that right knee of Luka's is, because
we're looking at highly detrimental.
Right. He's limping back on the court on defense down the stretch in the fourth quarter. I mean, he looks like the shell of an MVP candidate, right? He doesn't look good. This is the same conversation that was had with Kawhi in the first couple of games in their series against the Mavs when he was hurt. He looked more like a detriment and a role player than Kawhi Leonard. And you're wondering, should they sit Luka for this next game to let him rest? Let him have a full game to rest up, relax. I know you really want to come back, bro, but you're almost more of a detriment being on the court. 6 of 19 shooting. You're on one leg. You're not playing any transition defense. Forget just a little bit. Any transition defense. Let somebody else come up on the floor and
he's
run
already
a little bit.
A bad defender.
So
but he's had good games in the playoffs too. We can't sit here and blame the knee for the bad games and not act like he hasn't had good games, because the knee's been hurt. So
yeah. So it's just it's something that I think Mavs fans should think about, and I think that the staff of the Mavericks are probably running through their head of potentially, should we sit this guy? So
the Mavs are another. Go ahead.
Go ahead. No, go ahead.
They're another team that have an interesting offseason in front of them, because again, even if Luka was 100% healthy, this team is not better than OKC. This team is not better than Minnesota. And they need to find a way to get better next year, because certain teams are. There's a lot of big free agents out there this year. Brandon Ingram is most likely going to be available. Paul George is going to be available. These are players that And these aren't teams like the Suns. The Suns are fucked. Their cap space sucks. They have no draft picks. You can't
No
move
picks until like 2031.
You can't
Yeah.
move Durant. Nobody is trading for Beal. I don't care what their owner's such an idiot. Yeah, 26 of the 30 teams would trade for our roster and our cap situation. No, they wouldn't, sir.
Crazy.
No, they wouldn't.
Yeah.
And you're not trading Booker. They're screwed. The Warriors are old. The Lakers are old. The Mavs have an opportunity to get better and launch into that top 3 or 4 spot, especially since what are the Nuggets going to do in the offseason, assuming they don't make it forward. But they got to figure something out because the baggage that wears on Luka throughout the season. And I know I talked about not liking watching him play because he complains about the fouls. The fact of the matter is he gets beat up. Like, he complains about the fouls because he gets fouled. He's not complaining about shit that doesn't exist. I get that. I'm not stupid. But you got to get him a little more help because him and Kyrie, it's just not enough to take it to the next level. So
yeah, absolutely. For me, at the end of the day, I think if he doesn't get healthy and Kyrie can't step up, the game is kind of over. And honestly, I don't have any notes for OKC on what they should do. It's just like with the Timberwolves, keep playing the game, the athleticism and the length that you keep on playing with, and the series is going to be wrapped up, and you're going to be on your way. Playing in the semifinals.
The Timberwolves and OKC need to continue to do. They need to start the game. They need to play Oklahoma City Thunder basketball. They need to play Minnesota Timberwolves basketball. Don't change a thing. Don't adjust your lineups to the other teams. You're the better team on the court. Play your basketball game, and you'll continue to win. Until you play each other, then you might have to make adjustments. But for now, neither of these teams pose much of a threat. Although I thought the Nuggets would pose a threat, but clearly it's just not going to be enough.